Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Russell Matthews here. I just saw that there was a previously unannounced press conference going on currently with the Federal Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland. Now, this is the person who makes a lot of big decisions for Canada and where we're moving forward when it comes to benefits, when it comes to different programs, when it comes to investing, when it comes to all of these things. This is the person we need to watch. So I thought, hey, this is happening right now. Let's have a live stream and let's cover it. Before we do, I wanted to say, hey, how's it going, everyone? Thank you for hopping in here. Drop a comment down in the comments box. Let me know where you're from. How's it going? I hope you're having a good day so far. But let's, without further ado, hop right into this live stream that's currently happening. Let me pull it up here on my end so that I can show it to you, and then we'll get this rolling. All right. Yeah. So the federal minister of finance actually announced that the federal budget was coming out very, very soon. So that's something interesting that we're going to be looking out for. And I have a video coming out on that later today. But just as I was making that video, this announcement came out. So let's hop in here and let's see what she has to say. All right. And we can go to full screen here with chat so you guys can see everything. And let's flip forward. It looks like it's already okay. So it was a rather short announcement. Let's see if this is something that's actually significant or not. I just figured I'd hop on here because I was going to watch it anyways.
Pour assurer les Canadiens qui ont besoin d'aide. Nous devons prendre les mesures nécessaires pour assurer la sécurité des gens. That is why today I introduced Bill C-25.
C-25.
If enacted by Parliament, this legislation will provide $7.2 billion in critical support to provinces, territories, municipalities, and First Nations communities across Canada.
$7.2 billion to provinces.
$4 billion will go to immediate healthcare needs. COVID-19 has placed extreme pressure on healthcare systems across the country. The pandemic is still here, and many parts of our country are facing the threat of a third wave right now. Canadians need help urgently. So this money flowing through the Canada Health Transfer will help provide the life-saving procedures put on hold due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
This is pretty huge. This is something that provinces have been calling for a little while, having these this increased amount of federal health transfers. People have been worried that, hey, there's not enough money to actually implement all the things we need to do to actually get us back to normal and get out of this pandemic. So, and they had previously said that they thought it was more the jurisdiction of the provinces to handle all of this, and that this would be coming in the future. They're going to increase it in the future, but now it seems that's finally coming.
It will ensure that our healthcare system does not buckle under the continued strain of the pandemic, under the pressures of the third wave and new variants. We know that to fully revitalize Canada's economy, Canadians must be vaccinated. Vaccine campaigns are accelerating, and that is such a good thing. But we need to vaccinate even more Canadians, even more quickly. Thanks to plentiful and growing vaccine supply, that is something that Team Canada can get done together. So this legislation proposes a one-time payment of $1 billion to provinces and territories to reinforce and roll out vaccination programs.
Okay.
This builds on the $19 billion previously allotted to support provinces and territories through the Safe Restart Agreement last summer. Finally, we propose to invest $2.2 billion for municipalities and First Nations communities. This money will flow through the Federal Gas Tax Fund, which we are today proposing to rename the Canada Community Building Fund. Cities and towns are on the front line of the fight against COVID-19, and we will ensure that they can maintain and build the local infrastructure that Canadians depend on. Today is a down payment on investments that we will more fully outline in the federal budget next month.
April 19th.
Even as we plan for the mid and long term, we also need to address the immediate and urgent needs that Canadians face today. The battle against COVID-19 isn't over, and it's happening right now. Pour conclure, je tiens à réitérer
Okay, my French
que
isn't that
la
good. Since we're behind
collaboration
a little
a
bit, let's flip
été
forward.
Merci beaucoup, Christia. Good morning
Oh, their
and
stream
good
came out.
afternoon.
Their stream cut out.
Comme la vice-première ministre a dit,
It's
il
just-
n'y a pas de
that's so
plus
funny.
grande priorité pour le Canada en ce moment que de combattre
Okay,
it
this is
by
still
any means out of the woods yet. We all must continue to follow local
okay. He's
public
just going to say
health in
some
the
more
essential
things.
in our
Let's see if
joint
there's
fight
any more
against COVID.
information.
Merci beaucoup, Christia. I just want to start by recognizing the historic decision by the Supreme Court today that found that climate change is
Okay, so it seems like this is getting away from the actual announcement that was going on here. Let's flip this to the full cam here. Hey everyone, we just heard from the Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland here announce billions of dollars of spending that's going to go directly to provinces and municipalities and First Nations communities. So that's significant because unlike the federal government, the provincial governments in these individual municipalities have a harder time actually getting access to more money, right? The government of Canada can just create government of Canada bonds, and they have a permanent buyer through the Bank of Canada who will just buy all their bonds and essentially give them an essentially unlimited supply of money. So this is a big deal going out to the individual provinces. They're saying that more details are going to be in the federal budget that's coming out on April 19th, and that's a big deal. I've got a video coming out on that this evening, actually probably pretty soon after this live stream, that goes over some of those details of what's going to be in this budget. Now this could mean big news for any kind of benefits, when they're going to end, whether or not a UBI could be pushed into, and the progress on that, how likely it is that this is something that could be rolled out. On top of this, there's more information on the programs that are going to be rolled out and who's going to pay for it all. The NDP think, hey, it should be the wealthy. The other people think that, or other parties, especially the Conservatives, think, hey, we need to cut down on the spending, not just look for new ways to pay for it. But all of that information is going to be inside the budget that's coming up rather soon. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Yeah, it's happening now. Yeah. Hello. Hey, Saeed. Hey, Candace. Hey, how's it going? Wang, Des. And we got another Russell in here. When and where? Bribing provinces to force vaccine. Okay. So that's the bulk of this announcement, is that they're going to be sending money directly to the provinces. Now, it's a little bit odd to me that it was Chrystia Freeland who was announcing this, a little bit of a bait and switch. I mean, it is a lot of money that's being put in, but it seems like the focus on this is going to be, this is just a large health transfer to help the provinces and the cities and municipalities get through these things. But this could mean more in terms of benefits and programs to help support people inside of those jurisdictions in getting through the end of this pandemic, right? So that's interesting. Like yesterday, we saw the Ontario government release their budget and their information on what would be doled out to people. I believe it's an additional $400 for the Canada, or for the child benefit, or the support for learners fund that they announced earlier. They're going to top that up a little bit. Also, the business grant came out that they're going to extend this, maybe a second round on this. I need to do a little bit more research, but this is something that happened yesterday with the Ontario budget there. Yeah, we're seeing more people in the chat. Yeah, UBI has to be number one on the list. They better have UBI now that we have $170 carbon tax. Yeah, well, I mean, the carbon tax this morning was deemed to be constitutionally okay, right? It went through the Supreme Court this morning. I believe that decision was made, and it seems that the carbon tax is constitutional in their eyes. So it seems like that's might be something that sticks around. So interesting takes on that. Where's the small business grant money? Yeah, so it depends on which province you're in, but I know Ontario has this business grant of up to $20,000. It's not a loan. This is just money that you can get. I have a video on that original announcement. You can look up on my channel if you're in Ontario. BC also expanded a little bit in terms of the loans that they're providing, and likely other provinces are set to do the same in the future. We've got Russell from Campbell River, BC. Very cool. UBI is a play to get reelected. Yeah, some people believe that, right? There, of course, you're always going to have the argument that, people are buying votes when they have any sort of programs that are related to cash being sent out to Canadians, right? This is something that people cried foul about in British Columbia during their provincial election this year when John Horgan was elected, on the back of his promise to give everybody an extra $1,000 or $500 depending on your family makeup in the BC recovery benefit, right? This is an unprecedented provincial program that was rolled out earlier, that gave direct support in terms of payments to the province's residents. People said, hey, he's just buying your votes. He's buying your votes. So that's something, if UBI was included in anyone's election campaign, that there would likely be a lot of people crying foul about, and it may not be without reason. All right. Yeah, Christina, thanks. Yeah, good afternoon, Russell. Nice to hear another update. You're the best. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, Christina. It's nice to see everyone in here. I love doing these live streams. I think today's going to be quite a short one because let's face it, in terms of the new details that we've gotten about things that are going to directly affect Canadians right now, less so about the provinces. There wasn't a lot of information here in this announcement from Christopher Freeland. I saw that this live stream was happening. It's the Minister of Finance. Normally that's right in line with the topics we cover here on the channel. Benefits programs, any news relating to Canadians and their money. Anytime you see the finance minister giving an announcement, there could be some big things, but it seems like it was a little bit underwhelming today in terms of what new information they're bringing out. But of course, I'm marking my calendar, and this is, I think, what the name of the video is going to be this afternoon. I'm marking my calendar right now, everyone, for April 19th. That is the day that we're finally going to see what the government is going to do in the future. That's when they're releasing that federal budget. Yeah. Is universal wealth for everyone? It depends on the program and the details of it when something like that is eventually coming around. Good afternoon. Nice for another. Yes. Okay. Where is the Minister of Middle Class when it comes to UBI? Yeah, you need to think about how it's going to affect everybody. Some more info for that CCB increase would be wonderful. Yeah, Tiffany. So here's a quick update for you. I'm going to make a video on this soon. It seems like there's a lot of things coming out, so I'm trying to sort of schedule things to get videos out for you. But the CCB hasn't made any more progress in the House of Commons procedure. Right now, it's had its second reading and it's been moved to committee stage. And there have been, I think, 3 or 4 different finance, I think it's the finance committee that is currently sort of looking over this. Now, depending on the length of the bill, this was a rather long one. That finance committee goes over and debates every single individual point on the bill. So it takes quite a while in this committee phase. Now, inside of the committee, that's where they decide. And this is for the CCB, the Canada Child Benefit, children under 6, that increase of $1,200 over the course of the year, as well as student debt interest pausing on all federal student interest. So that's what a lot of students and also parents are looking at right now. But that's sort of locked up in that the committee stage right now. They've met a few different times, 4 or 5 times. I don't know if they're finished now. I need to watch that committee meeting and I watch these things on like 4x speed so I can get through as much as I can so I can bring you the information. I don't believe they're through that committee phase yet, but if there's any amendments that they've made in that committee phase, they have to debate that all over again in the House of Commons. So it could still be a little while, even though we're past the first, or we're getting close to being past the first quarter here, in which people were expecting to receive $300 from the CCB. S. Yeah, thanks for the kind words. We got Dana. Hi, new to your channel. Greetings from Prince Rupert, BC. Thanks for the great content. Hey, Dana, thanks so much for tuning in. Welcome to the club. We've got a nice community here of a lot of people who are focused on this Canadian content, and I'm really excited to keep on bringing it to you. Oh, what am I drinking? Yeah, okay. Yeah, usually I have my coffee. I finished my warm coffee today. It's getting warmer out, so I'm back to the iced coffee today. I make like a big pot of coffee, like in one of those typical coffee pots, and I'll take it out and let it cool down and then throw it in the fridge. Just keep it there. Put a little bit of this French vanilla creamer in the bottom, a couple ice cubes. Boom. It's a beautiful drink. Who needs to spend $5 at Starbucks? You can do this for like 5 cents. CRB extended. Yeah, the CRB was extended a little while ago, and that seems to be rolling out just fine. The regulations were changed. It never had to pass through the House of Commons, so pretty much from when it was announced to it actually being rolled out, that was always going to happen, so that's good to know. Yeah, Arlene, I'm glad you finally got in here too. Thanks for making all your... Yeah, you're very welcome, very welcome. It's so nice to talk to everybody. Quick question. If someone applies for EI on September 20th, 2021... Will they get the minimum week for the benefit, but will the extension as well? Yeah, I mean, if you apply anytime within the periods for that EI extension that they mentioned, it was like September 2020 to September 2021. If you apply in the middle of there, these new guidelines would apply to you. I believe it's for claims that begin in the middle, right? So even if it spills over, you should be fine. Good question there, Jack. Good afternoon, Russell. Continue the great work by giving us these updates. Yeah, happy to do so. I've been here since 900. Oh, that's awesome to see you in here, Alex Stamatakos. Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of fun growing this channel lately, and hoping to keep it going. I have a lot of fun doing this sort of stuff, and I think it's something that's not really out there right now. So I'm going to keep on doing it for you, and I appreciate everyone's support and trying to help the channel grow and keep on supporting Canadian content like this. Yeah, hey Mumu, I missed the announcement. Can you recap? Yeah, so I'll do a quick recap here as we're likely coming up to the end. I was just going to do a short little live stream here to cover what was here. The announcement was, I think it was around $8 billion. I'll have to go back, but $8 billion from the federal government being transferred to the provinces and to individual municipalities. This is the announcement that they're trying to put forward. Now, this is called Bill C-25. So it's not like when the government announces these things, it's not like in most cases the government can snap its fingers and make these changes happen. Most of the time, unless it can be changed by regulation, it has to be changed by legislation. So they're implementing this money to go to the provinces in this new bill that they're going to now have to debate in the House of Commons and go through all the motions that we covered here on the channel when we were covering that EI extension. So that's where things currently are, and that money is meant to be a health transfer. Lots of provinces, and they actually held a joint press conference a couple weeks ago. All the premiers of all the different provinces, or many different provinces, came together saying, "Hey, federal government, we need some cash. We need some money for our health systems because of the strain that the pandemic has put on them." So previously the federal government said, "Hey, we're not going to give you money right now. We already committed to it in the future, but you're going to have to look out for the future." And I guess the future is now, because they're bringing this money and handing it out to the different provinces, around $7.5-8 billion, I think, if I remember correctly from what they said there. So there's a quick little update for you. It seems like not all of this will be specifically just for health. Provinces may have flexibility to create other sort of programs and benefits for their citizens as they see fit, but it seems like the bulk of this will be a health transfer. When will housing come to a standstill? Niagara region, should I sell now? I mean, it's a difficult question right now, right? We've seen asset prices just fly up, stocks and real estate. People who have been investing and have been doing things like checking with the links in the description where you can open up your own investment accounts. People who have taken that advice and have gone into that, even though the stock market's down a little bit right now, but people who have bought investments and bought real estate, they've really done well throughout the pandemic, especially real estate. It's hugely increased in Canada in most markets. So that's a good question, Tattooed Canuck. When will it come to a standstill, specifically in the Niagara region? If anyone tells you that they know for a fact when things are going to happen, you turn the other way and you run away from them, right? Because nobody has a crystal ball when it comes to these things, but we can have our best guesses, right? As of right now, with the policy in the Government of Canada, with the policy from the Bank of Canada in terms of when they're going to raise their interest rates, remember that's the main thing that's I believe is going to have an impact on the housing market, is how much people have to pay in interest on their mortgages. We have indication from the Bank of Canada that they're not planning on slowing this down until 2023. So that means we could see more growth in the housing market, but there could be new decisions made at any point by the government that could affect housing prices as well. So while it does feel like a peak right now, I think, and you might say, "Hey Russell, you're a realtor, of course you're going to try to pump real estate prices," but no, I'll tell you when I think it's not going to do this. But I think that based on all these policies, it's likely that real estate will keep going up for a while unless some new information comes out that we're not already aware of. So make of that what you will, Tattooed Canuck. I hope that helps you out. Why do municipalities need money when citizens are already paying property taxes? Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. It seems it's not quite enough just to fund everything from property taxes. I'm also interested in what portion, I need to do some more research on this, but what portion of this is actually able to be kept fully by the provinces or by the individual municipalities, and how those budgets typically work out in their ability to pay for the things in that area. Yeah, thanks, Heinz, for tuning in. Hospitals are empty even at the height of the pandemic. Yeah, I haven't been in one, so I don't have any firsthand experience. Thank you for the recap. You're welcome, Hazel. Nancy says, any ideas why Bitcoin is retreating? Yeah, no specific ideas as to why this is happening. Of course, it seems like lately it's sort of been tracking the stock market. It hasn't been like it's been rather correlated with the stock market. We're seeing stocks go down. I think last week it was largely the information that was making that happen, with bond yields going up, suggesting that interest rates could be going up in the future. This is in the States. The Federal Reserve came out and said that they don't expect for interest rates to raise that significantly, and they don't expect for there to be mass inflation. But even still, people were saying, hey, we're seeing bond yields go up, interest rates could go up, makes it more expensive for people to borrow and to invest. And this could be why Bitcoin is going down a little bit, as some people prepare for the stock market to go down. Maybe some people who are invested in Bitcoin sell off their Bitcoin so that they can be better prepared for a potential stock market dip. So that's my thoughts on it. My thesis on Bitcoin is and cryptocurrencies. I hold Bitcoin and Ethereum, the two major players. I'm interested in ADA as well, Cardano. But my strategy is just buy and hold for the long term. And this is the same for my strategy that I talk about on stocks and investing in general, is that I'm talking long term, right? I don't want to invest any money I need right now. So I'm not even like I'm following it, but I'm not worried. Like, I'm not looking at my stock portfolio every single day saying, hey, oh my gosh, this has gone down. This is crazy. I'm down $5,000. I'm down $4,000 from 3 months ago. Like, that's not good for your psychology. I'm trying not to look at it because it doesn't matter in the short term. I'm investing for the long term, and that's what I suggest you do as well. I'm talking 30 years, 20 years, 30 years. Of course, I'm young. I can sort of more plan for that timeline, and I can make my investments based on that time horizon that I have. But I recommend to anybody, if you're thinking long term enough, you're not going to be worried about selling when things are going down, because I think long term things will, it's like a yo-yo on an escalator, right? It's going up and down, but it's constantly going up. And that's the way that history is played out. So that's the way I think about it. Yeah, Tattooed says, smash the like for Russell. It helps me out a lot. Yeah, thanks for you guys who have already done that. I see a bunch of people who have liked it here. 175 people in the stream, 70 likes. I think we can get that ratio up a little bit. Yeah, it definitely helps out. And thank you guys for tuning in. I'm glad that you've been enjoying these streams. All right. Is CRB extended till September? Jeff, no, we haven't seen any announcement of that. I mean, CRB, the program itself, is all the way to September. That's like the program was structured September to September, 2020 to 2021. But that's not the way the program actually works. Like, you can't get it for the entire time, because the thing that was extended was the amount of periods you could apply for, 2-week periods. Right now, if you were applying right from the start, back at the beginning of October when it opened up, you would be able to apply now all the way till the end of June, every single 2-week period, and that's when things would be cut off. But now that the government's extended it once, and they did the same thing with the CERB, it could be kind of likely that they extend the amount of eligibility periods if we don't see a huge recovery in the jobs market. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, Candace, good point about the futures. And it also could be rebalancing in certain portfolios, fund managers. It could just be this sort of end of the month rebalancing, end of quarter rebalancing. Good point, Candace. I appreciate you hanging out in all these streams, Candace. I've seen you here a few times. It's awesome. Also, what do you recommend, a fixed or variable rate? Now, it depends on your individual goals. And what you plan on doing with your real estate. One key thing, like, people think about fixed and variable rate mortgages a little bit differently than I think they should, right? People focus primarily on the fact that with a variable rate, of course, your mortgage interest rate can go up and down over time. And if you want a solid fixed amount of payment for your mortgage each and every month, of course, the variables may not be for you. But the important thing that I think is the benefit with a variable rate mortgage is that most of the time with a variable rate, oftentimes it'll be a lower interest rate than the current one going on. Maybe not if you locked in at the wrong time, but this is what people don't consider when it comes to variable rate mortgages. Oftentimes with a variable rate mortgage, there are less fees and penalties for breaking your mortgage or for trying to repay the entirety of your mortgage or to refinance. Now, depending on what your plans are for your real estate journey, it could make sense if you only want to be in a house for a couple of years and you want to do something like the BRRRR strategy where you can take some of your money out by refinancing to maybe buy another property, buy a rental, all these strategies to grow your wealth that we talk about from time to time here on the channel. If you're going to be refinancing or if you want to potentially change over mortgages and lock in at a certain point, then variable rate could be for you because you could be paying thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on a fixed rate mortgage if you want to refinance or if you want to break that mortgage. So there's more flexibility in variable rates, but of course there is the risk that interest rates go up. Right now, the Bank of Canada is saying, hey, we're not going to raise interest rates until 2023, so do with that information what you will. Yeah, keep hitting that like button. I love it, Bobby. Thanks for the support. Moo, that'll be different for every single person. Your EI started in March. Yeah, you have to check in on your My Service Canada account to get that information. Yeah, Frida, thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you enjoy these live streams. I have a lot of fun doing them. Love your content. Thanks so much for the work you put in for all Canadians. Yeah, thanks so much. Imagine Wagons. That's a good name. Imagine Wagons. Oh, that's a good chuckle. Oh, thanks for the kind words. I'm not paying my taxes on CERB. I'm just following the government's example of how to hoard money. I mean, yeah, well, you can legally not pay your taxes this year if you receive CERB, right? Remember, there's that interest deferral for a year. Everyone who received CERB or any benefit or EI or any provincial benefit that was direct payment to Canadians, there's going to be no interest penalty on you not paying your taxes for the next year. You still have to file them on time unless you don't, you still have to file your taxes on time. Otherwise, you're going to get a penalty on that. But if you owe anything, you don't have to pay it back for a year because there's zero interest. Now, that means there's going to be a double tax bill for you come 2022 or 2021's tax season, which is in 2022. There's going to be a double tax bill for you for the 2020 year and 2021. But as long as you keep that in mind, you don't technically have to pay off your taxes this year. So for many people, it could make sense to invest this or put it in a high interest savings account, have your money that you would have paid for your taxes make you money for the entire year before you have to pay it off. But as I always say, you have to know thyself when it comes to these decisions about your money. If you're going to see that money in your account and you're going to say, hey, I have all this money, I'm going to spend it, and then you're going to be in the hole for an even greater amount in 2021 than, or like 2021's tax season, which is in 2022, you got to know yourself as to how much you want to save. And if you see money in your account, are you going to spend it? You got to ask yourself these questions. I think personal finance is such an individual game, right? You really have to know yourself, and there's a lot of psychology that goes into it. So I think that's pretty interesting. Russell, I missed that. Let me scroll up. Russell, is that a long nose hair or a mustache? Oh, it's definitely a mustache, but maybe I do need a clip up. Yeah, I'm sure you guys love that. Me checking my my mustache in the camera for you. That's so funny. Oh man. Anything about COVID money going to DE? I'm not sure what that's referring to. Stocks or anything else you would recommend for long-term investment? I mean, I hesitate to answer questions like this all the time because it's such an independent thing, right? For every individual person, what works for you, what your risk tolerance is, what your time horizon is, and what sort of what you're looking for in your investment. I think that increasing your savings rate and increasing your income in the short term so that you can invest more, that's where a lot of people should be focused. I'm actually working on a course that's going to cover a lot of this stuff that I may release here in the future for all of this to be all put together. But yeah, in terms of individual investment, as long as you have a long time horizon, I'd say invest in companies that you have faith in, that you've done some due diligence on, and that you believe in the long term. We'll talk about this more in the future, but but yeah, so as long as you have a long enough time horizon, there are a lot of potential safe bets in the stock market. So that would be my answer to you. We can go into more detail that in the future and my thoughts on how to pick and what the best investment strategy is for different people. Hey, Kamar. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Jeff, Russell, Matthew. Okay, yeah, a huge thank you to Rupert's Land Métis for helping the Métis people attending college. Oh, that's awesome. I wasn't aware of anything that's happened there, but I'm glad that people have been receiving some help. Heard you mention on one of your last videos that EI for sick leave was not extended with the other EI. Is there any reason for not extending EI sick / illness leave? There's no reason for it. They just didn't include it in the bill. The NDP were pretty pissed off about this, that it wasn't included in the bill. And if you watch my video on there was a debate all about this. There's a bunch of videos on the channel going over what the NDP said, and Bloc Québécois were also on board for this. Hey, why is there no extension to sickness benefits? It's only 15 weeks and everything else is like being bumped to 50 in many cases as a maximum. So yeah, there's no reason. They just didn't include it in the legislation. Liberals said that, hey, we don't want to include this in the legislation because we want to make sure we're only focusing on the fine details here. All of the all of the things that are immediately pressing, I think they said, or the emergency things. So they were trying to limit the amount of clauses inside of the bill so that in the House of Commons they could read it and they wouldn't be debating a ton of different things. They could get the legislation passed really quickly. But people said, hey, is this not important too? This EI sickness extension? A lot of people were frustrated about that because now they're going to have to go through the whole legislation process all over again if they want to make any changes like that. And the Liberal government themselves are in support of an extension like this. Everyone's in support of it. So it was kind of silly that it wasn't included because there wouldn't be any problems with that. Liberal government campaigned on increasing it to 26 weeks. It's still 15. I think the NDP want it at 50. I think the Bloc Québécois is around there too. But yeah, that's an interesting point. What's happened about the UBI bill? So Kamar, there's no new updates on the UBI bill. That was the one that was introduced to the House of Commons by Julie Zerowicz, I believe. So that bill hasn't been debated for a second time. I don't think it's been turned down, but because it was a non-members bill, which like a bill that's coming from someone who's not in the cabinet, some of the federal ministers, this is my understanding. Because of that, it doesn't get priority in the schedule, so it can be quite a while till it makes its way through the House of Commons. And remember, this bill wasn't actually to implement the UBI, it was to push the Liberal government to set up various committees and to set up various pilot projects. Many people who are actually in support of a guaranteed livable income or universal basic income were like, hey, this isn't what we asked for. Years more of studying it. We want something implemented now. So even though the bill is in support of it, some people who support UBI weren't huge on the bill itself. Yeah, Rhino, I'm happy to chat with anybody. I'm glad to see all you in here. Like I said, if you haven't already, like the stream, it helps get it out to more people. We were thinking about shutting this down after that announcement was a little bit lackluster in terms of what we were expecting. But it seems like there's some good conversation going on here, so we'll stay on for a little bit. Let me know if you have any questions or anything you want to talk about. Remember, we talk about on the channel Canadian politics, Canadian news, real estate investing, stock market investing, Canadian personal finance. These are the things that I'm most passionate about. So anything about that, we'd be happy to talk about. Mark said, I thought I had CERB, but they gave me EI even though I had quit my job in November 2019. Do you think they can make me pay my EI money back? It was 35 hours per week, $14 an hour. I worked there since mid-2017. Well, I believe if you were on EI, they would have verified that you were eligible before paying it out. So I think it's unlikely that they'll make you pay back your EI money that you received. Now, of course, this is all taxable money, so you're going to have to pay it back on your taxes. But if you were eligible for it, then that's likely money that you can count on, right? Yeah, many people were confused about like, oh, I'm on EI now, what happened? But when the CRB came into effect, it wasn't just the CRB, right? Remember, we had CERB, the CERB, and that transitioned and sort of branched out into two programs, the expanded EI program and the CRB. So you might have been on CERB initially, and then it branched out and you went on that EI route based on your eligibility. All right. Yeah, Des, thanks for tuning in. Is having 30K saved good? I mean, that's great. It's better than a lot of Canadians who are living paycheck to paycheck. That's a great fund there. Yeah, I'm happy for you, Machiavelli. Yeah, Machiavelli 333. Yeah, so I'm happy for you. I mean, everyone has their own individual goals and places they want to be, but I think that's great. The key thing is investing and waiting and not spending it. That's what I'm all about. Russell, the third criteria on paying taxes for this year is you cannot earn more than 75K. Yes, good point. Yeah, you're right. I should mention that more frequently, that likely many people who were on the benefits didn't earn 75K in most cases, but there are going to be fringe cases where people received a benefit and also made above that amount. So that's key to note. You're not going to get that interest deferral, I don't believe, if you made over that income amount, including all of the benefits. Hi, Russell. Have you heard anything about the wage subsidy being extended after June? I'm not as big of an expert on that, Scott. Hey, nice last name, by the way, Scott. I like that. It's me, you, and Austin Matthews on the Leafs. I'm a big Leafs fan. It was a good day for me when Austin Matthews was drafted by the Leafs, because I'm like, hey, I can buy a jersey without having to customize it with my last name on it. Pretty good. But I haven't heard anything more about that, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. It's not something that applies directly to as many people. It's more for business owners, but also employees of those businesses. I believe that this is likely to try to be extended within Bill C-24. I might be wrong on that, though. So I'll have to do a little bit more research for you there, Scott. What's my personal input about the extension CRB and EI? Yeah, good question, Janelle. I mean, I think it's, well, given where the job market is, how difficult it is to get a job, I think, I mean, some sort of support is definitely necessary. Whether or not it's rolled out in the right way, paid for in the right way, that's a whole different question. And I don't think I'm smart enough to really know the long-term impacts of everything that's going on here in the country. But that's a great question. Hey, Frank, how's it going? Good to see you in here. Good to see you in here. You get that nice highlighted message. That's awesome. Thanks for tuning in and for supporting the channel with that by hitting that join button, Frank. That's awesome. Hope you're having a good day. How much do you need as a down payment for a house? Now, the minimum in most cases is 5% down, right? Of course, if you pay 5% down, you're going to have mortgage insurance on your home. But I think a lot of people think, oh, I want to have 20% so I don't have to have mortgage insurance. I would recommend actually getting mortgage insurance and getting into the housing market as soon as you can with a 5% down payment. Even though you're going to pay more in your mortgage insurance, eventually, when you have enough equity in the property, when you've paid off enough, you can just refinance your property. You'll have 20% equity in the home, or essentially like you had a down payment of 20%, and then you don't need mortgage insurance anymore. And it gets you into the market, and it gets you controlling these assets like real estate, which has been so great for so many Canadians, especially given what's happened during the pandemic of all the money printing and all of this sort of being funneled into the housing market. Doesn't EI remove the tax? I'm not sure if it removes some of the tax there, Mary. But if it does, it likely doesn't remove all of it for different people, right? People have different income tax brackets, and this is just like for the CRB. They took $100 off of every period, or 10% of the entire payment, I believe. But most people are going to end up paying more than 10% in income tax. So if that's the case for you, you could have to pay the difference, right? So that's generally how those benefits work. Have they extended the EEI program? Yeah, they did. That was successful. That made it through. They've extended the maximum amount of weeks, I believe. All right. Candace says, "Oh, the Leafs must have wanted to see the blue set." Hey, yeah, you noticed the Easter egg. Yeah, this is when the Leafs win. I put this Rubik's Cube as blue. Here, I can move the chat. Ooh, yeah, you can see it. Yeah, so the Leafs won their last game, but tonight there's been a little bit of a break. They're playing tonight. I think they're playing the Sens, so I'll be watching that. I don't know if anyone else in here is a Leafs fan. Let me know, but I'll be watching that tonight. Hey man, Rodney says, hey man, so if you're on EI now because of the server shut down, does the extension apply? Seeing as I met the requirements to qualify for the CERB initially. So if you're on EI now and your claim began after the start date, I think it was September 27th, if you on or after September 27th, then given you're eligible for the extension of weeks, then you would be eligible for that, because that claim is the important, like when your EI started is the important thing in determining that. There's a little bit of confusion around who's getting the extension and how this is actually being calculated, whether or not everyone's being bumped up to 50 or whether it's going to be incremental based on some other factors. There's a little bit of a lack of clarity from Service Canada about how that's actually going to work out, but keep an eye on your MSCA, your My Service Canada account, and you should be able to get a little bit of information there on what's going on in terms of how many weeks you have left. And lots of people's amount of weeks, entitlement weeks, it has been updated. So I'd recommend checking it out on your account. Good question. Yeah, hey Russell, I have friends on Ontario Works and ODSP that receive CERB. What will happen to them? That's a good question. I know there were a lot of people that may not have been eligible for the CERB who applied. And there's questions about CERB repayment amnesty for low-income Canadians. That's something that the NDP have pushed for. Check out the video on my channel, Timothy, called... I think it's called Will All Debt Be Cancelled or something like this. It's where they're debating Bill C-24, but they actually bring up these ideas that some people who weren't eligible for CRB applied, and because there weren't these sort of stops to check for eligibility, they were able to get it. And they may have actually been required to apply for it because some of those provincial programs require you to apply for any and all other aid before receiving the Ontario Works or ODSP. So yeah, there's questions about that, but likely as of right now, the policy is if you weren't eligible for it, well, you have to pay it back. If you applied in good faith, there won't be any interest or penalties, but they could be seeing a rather large bill coming their way unless the government comes up with some sort of plan to give them repayment amnesty. This is what the NDP are really pushing hard for. Karen says, hello, do you think it's worth it to become a realtor right now? I mean, it depends on you as an individual and what you want to do. I mean, getting started as a realtor is definitely challenging. I recommend having a big reserve fund of cash, especially if you're going into it full time right off from the start, because it's likely that you're not going to make a lot of money for the first year and a half, 2 years, right? It really is like a hockey stick, right? It grows like this, and then all of a sudden it starts to spike up as a realtor. So you got to have a little bit of a safety net, a reserve fund there to get in. Yeah, it depends on if it's the industry that seems right for you. If you're good working with people, most of the work as a realtor is in lead generation and getting clients, right? Once you've developed these relationships, people will work with you, and then you can go through the motions of dealing with the contracts, the negotiation, sort of client management, emotional management. These are the big things that are important, at least in my experience of working as a realtor. So take that information and do with it what you will, Karen. You can always DM me on Instagram or email me if you want to chat more about it. Yeah. Jay Whippy said, I got the extension. Awesome. Jad Andres said, hey, amigo, hey. When will you make a video about how to use the first homebuyer program properly? That's a good idea. Maybe I will make that. Depends on which program you're talking about. There are a couple different first-time homebuyer programs. Like there's one where you can take money out of your RRSP, and there's also a new one that the Liberals brought in a little while ago that allows them to take an equity stake in your home to sort of reduce the cost that you need up front to get into a house. That program hasn't been the most successful, but that could be a good idea. Okay, Markina, great. It's great to get that feedback. Rodney, yeah, I'm glad that helped. Timothy, but they'll be charged for fraud. They purposely knew they weren't eligible. Yeah, and this could, it depends on if they applied in good faith, they said there won't be any penalties. But what is good faith? These are just some sort of subjective terms. But I mean, that is a potential outcome, Ada. Yeah, you're welcome, John. Jackson says, can you apply if you haven't done your taxes yet? Yeah, I believe you can apply for most programs even if you don't have your taxes. But for many of them, you need to provide proof of the income to meet the minimum income requirement, like for the CRB with that $5,000 requirement in the previous year. So you may have to supply some documents if you don't have your taxes for them to look at. Have money in a TFSA, would you recommend investing it instead of just holding it in cash? Thanks for your words of wisdom. Irene, a resounding yes, 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 yes. TFSA is, and this is like the holy grail of investing accounts. In the name, they named it the wrong thing. TFSA shouldn't be called TFSA. The TFSA stands for tax-free savings account, but I believe that nobody should really be using it as a savings account. Right now, banks will pay you on savings account a very, very, very low interest rate on your money. But the TFSA is so beautiful for investing in because any of the growth on your investments inside of a TFSA, usually on a typical investment, when you go to sell it, the government will say, hey, good job investing and making all that money, give us our piece of the pie, right? But with any funds inside of a TFSA account, this isn't going to happen for you. It's tax-free. So any kind of growth on your investments inside a TFSA is totally tax-free. This is the huge benefit of a TFSA. And if you have it just staying there in a savings account, I can see why you did, right? Because it's called a savings account. But I'd recommend opening up a self-directed TFSA investment account. You can do that on places like Wealthsimple, Questrade. There's a link in the description. I think it's underneath this video. It says start investing. You can sign up for Wealthsimple. They have a TFSA there that you can open up and you can invest directly. I recommend them if you're investing in ETFs, exchange traded funds, and Canadian stocks, because then you'll have no fees on the platform whatsoever. Wealthsimple's not that great for investing in US stocks, but I use Questrade for that. Great question. I'm glad I got to talk about that, because if nobody's heard about that before, that's a good thing to note. Yeah, exactly. It's your risk that decides how you invest. Bonds, GICs, etc. now offer nothing, but still better than 0% in a bank. That's a great point, Bill. Yeah, bonds and GICs, especially with the Bank of Canada buying up all the bonds, right? You have incredibly low yields, right? I personally like to be a little more high risk in my TFSA account because it's the larger potential for growth, right? And if you have this huge growth potential in these higher risk, high reward stocks, right? And higher conviction stocks, ones you really believe are going to do well for you, that's what I recommend in the TFSA, because you're not taxed on the growth. Until you've maxed out your TFSA, I recommend putting everything in there, right? But that's why I like to put higher risk things in my TFSA, so that if they potentially boom, then I'm not going to have to pay tax on it. Yeah, buy Canadian dividend paying stocks. I have a video on that here on my channel. I think it's something like my $8,000 dividend investment, recent dividend investment. So you can check that out on the channel. But dividends are great because they pay you every quarter just for holding the stock. Some people even retire on this, right? And once you invest enough, you're paid every quarter, potentially every month from your stocks. And if you can live off those dividend payments, you can retire, right? It's a great strategy. Yeah, thanks for that, Andre. Yeah, hold that in a TFSA. Great. I heard there's a program to help people on disability to get a mortgage. I think there's lots of different programs out there. It could be province specific. I'm not too familiar with that one, but there likely could be a program like that. I really recommend anyone who's going into housing doing the research on their individual municipality and their individual province to see what sort of programs are available. Estos says, why don't I start my own ETF? People listen to you, bro. Man, I mean, that's an idea. That's an idea, certainly. But I think it would be a lot of red tape and a lot of time, right? And that's not something I really want to sink all my time into right now, if you know what I mean. Time is the most valuable resource. People think it's money, but it's time. You know what I mean? I only owe $600 for income taxes. Awesome, Andre. That's great. $1,800 due to serve. Yeah, it sucks. Lots of people who have never had to pay back their pay on their tax return are having to this year because of the extra benefits, extra income they got, right? Especially if you made over that basic personal amount this year for the first time. Yeah, that's a great idea, Candace. If you're going to keep an emergency fund, keep it in the highest interest savings account that you possibly can, right? Right now, there's quite a lot of inflation in my eyes. It's not really reflected in the CPI and what people use to measure inflation. But I think that in terms of real inflation, yeah, there's a lot more money being added to the system. The M2 has gone dramatically up. So yeah, I definitely recommend, like, if you're just sitting on cash in a savings account that isn't making money, isn't paying you interest, then you're losing money every day because of the decreased value of that cash, right? That's why it's so important to invest. Yeah, like Candace said, have an emergency fund so that you can get into it and invest without the fear of having to sell your stocks to pay for your lifestyle. All right. Do you prefer Canadian or American stocks for your TFSA? I think it doesn't make a huge difference for my TFSA. Like I said, I like to prioritize growth stocks inside of my TFSA because there's the most potential for them to grow and not be taxed on it. The one thing you do want to look out for, though, is making sure that you don't, or that you potentially do some research on this, but I believe there are some problems with holding U.S. dividend paying stocks in a TFSA because of rules in the states, they want to make sure that everyone's taxed equally on these investments. If you hold in a TFSA, typically a dividend wouldn't be taxed inside of a TFSA. But if it's American, I believe that you do have to pay tax to the American government on these dividends, since you're not paying it in your home country of Canada, right? So watch out for that. That's one sort of landmine that you don't want to step on. With CERB payments, are we eligible for a refund? I don't. If you're talking about taxes, I wouldn't say so. No. Typically, you're eligible for a refund if your employer's been like taking away money from your paycheck each month to go towards your taxes, and then you find out, hey, I have all these tax credits, I have these expenses, and now the government actually owes me. That's what a refund is, right? For CERB and these benefits, it's likely that that's not the case. So it just counts as an additional taxable income. Exactly, Bill. That's right. That's right. If you put American stocks in your RSP, you can avoid the U.S. 15% holding tax. Okay, yeah, but you will, when you withdraw it from the RSP, have to pay tax on that, right? But of course, you're right. You're right, Candace. Yeah, but yeah, that's the problem with RRSP. Like, my goals for wealth and money management and wealth creation for the future is I hope to be making a higher income than I am right now by the time I'm in those older years, right? So the idea for an RSP, if that's your goal, it may not make the most sense, right? Because if you're making more in the future, you may be in a higher tax bracket than you are right now when you're contributing to your RSP, right? So you would be taxed at a higher bracket than if you were just taxed on it right now, right? So this is why I think it depends on your strategy and what your retirement plans look like on whether or not an RRSP is a good idea. A registered retirement savings plan. It's RRSP. Yeah, great point, Candace. That's awesome. Well, I think with that said, thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We went over that. I'll give you a quick recap here on what the finance minister said. She said, hey, around $8 billion, we're sending it out to provinces and municipalities to help pay for things, mostly healthcare services, to actually be able to get the pandemic over with and getting all the vaccines out. That's what she said in the announcement. We were expecting a little bit more. Normally when the finance minister comes out and says, hey, I have an announcement, it's something that's more directly related to Canadians and their finance. That's why we hopped on here for the live stream initially. But anyways, we got a good chance to chat here about a whole bunch of different topics. Had a lot of fun. Just got to hang out and enjoy my iced coffee. So good. But my coffee addiction's getting pretty bad. I'm on like 5 cups a day at this point. I don't know if that's going to crush my health in the future. Who knows? But with that said, I just wanted to thank you guys for tuning in. Do you have to file taxes this year? File every year. Yeah, file. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Hope this video has helped you out a little bit. If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe. We're only Canadian content here. We're trying to build a community here that really, really focuses on Canadian content heavily, because I believe there's not quite enough of that out there these days. And with all that said, thank you so much for watching, everybody. Hope this stream has helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone. Have a great day. Happy Thursday.